Fox News Alert, a new party just joining the fight between the White House and the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, this dust-up all started when Chief Justice of the United States, John Roberts, criticized President Obama's State of the Union address. Now, that address happened back in January, but the Supreme Court justices don't speak out very often. Chief Justice Roberts just did, and he was upset with President Obama for specifically calling out a recent Supreme Court ruling. The Chief Justice saying that President Obama is absolutely free to speak his mind on such matters, but questioning whether the State of the Union address to Congress, with the Supreme Court justices sitting there, is the proper venue.
There is the issue of the setting, the circumstances, and the decorum. To the extent the State of the Union has degenerated into a political pep rally, I'm not sure why we're there. So, does Chief Justice Roberts have a point? Joining us now is Republican Senator Orrin Hatch. He is a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee and has been for many years. Senator, good afternoon to you. So you are weighing in now on this battle. What say you?
Well, I've been asked to weigh in by you, so I will. But look, it was a political pep rally. I mean, I get so tired of it myself, just bouncing up and down at whatever strikes you as interesting. But the president was wrong on the law. He was wrong on the facts. And I thought it was unseemly for him to, criticize the Supreme Court while they're sitting there. I don't blame them if they never come back to another State of the Union, because they're a separate branch of government. They're not there to be lectured by the President of the United States. And had he been right on the law and the facts, it still might have been a very injudicious choice to criticize the court while they're sitting there.
Well, let me just fill our viewers in on what you're talking about, because I may not have given enough background. President Obama came out in the State of the Union. He criticized the U.S. Supreme Court for its decision recently with respect to campaign finance, which some say opened up the doors for foreign corporations to put money into elections here. The Supreme Court its defenders denied that, and Justice Alito actually shook his head no and said that's not true. And then there was a question about whether President Obama was really out of line making that kind of a criticism right to the Supreme Court's face in a setting in which they really can't respond. That was the issue. And now the Chief Justice seems to be taking issue with him. But Senator Hatch, Robert Gibbs, the White House press secretary, stands by the president and says there was nothing wrong with this. Well,
what do you expect Robert Gibbs to do? I mean, he's the chief apologist for the president. I don't blame him for that. I think it's stupid the way he stood by him on this issue. But here's what the president said. The Supreme Court reversed a century of law to open the floodgates for special interests, including foreign companies. That's not true. To spend without limits, that's not true in our elections. Well, I don't think American elections should be bankrolled by America's most powerful interests and worse by foreign entities. Well, those are not facts. Those are not truths. And to stand there and criticize the court in that manner, especially by somebody who has had a background in constitutional law, that's properly criticized by the justice. I think the justice is wholly within his rights. He was accurate. I think it had to be offensive. I turned to my seatmate there and I said, uh-oh, I said, that was a terrible thing to say with the justices sitting there. I'll bet they never come back to another State of the Union. And I wouldn't blame them. Plus, the Chief Justice criticized the politicization of this by both sides just bouncing up and down throughout the whole doggone talk and making it really a political exercise rather than something that's really supposed to be very serious to let the people in this country know. Now, I don't blame the president for that. I blame us members of Congress. I got to admit, there were a couple times I just didn't want to get up, but you have to, or you look like some sort of adult who doesn't care.
No, but let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Senator Hatch, because Robert Gibbs, I just want to follow up, and this is his point, because we had Chief Justice Roberts come out and say, I don't know about his criticism in this setting, and this is what Gibbs says. Because Chief Justice Roberts called it troubling. Robert Gibbs says what's troubling is that this decision opened the floodgates for corporations and special interests to pour money into elections, drowning out the voices of average Americans. He is standing his ground, and then he goes on and says the president has long been committed to reducing the undue influence of special interests and their lobbyists over government.
That compounds the error again. Right as he's saying that, they're trying to stack the laws so that federal government gifts and contracts go to the union companies rather than none. What he didn't say, the president, was that their opinion did not help either the unions or the corporations. They have been barred from 6 months into the election from criticizing candidates. Well, this takes
but
that bar away and gives them the right of speech.
But on the decorum of it, Senator Hatch, I mean, is it?
Well,
Robert Gibbs seems to be.
He
doesn't seem to see any problem in the president calling out the Supreme Court justices who are sitting there. I mean, they issued the decision. They're big boys and girls. Can they not take it?
Well, no, wait a minute. There's a difference between disagreeing. The president could have easily said, look, I'm a little troubled by the Supreme Court decision. I don't agree with it. He could have said that. No, what he said was he misstated the law, misstated how the law is applied, and that's why Justice Alito was shaking his head no. He just couldn't sit there and take it like that, and yeah, it was improper, to be honest with you. It was unfortunate. I don't think the president you know, I blame the doggone speechwriter who wrote it. The president was delivering the speech as written. Of course, I'm sure he'd read it over a few times. And he himself should have thought to himself, is this a proper way to criticize the court in front of the whole world?
It doesn't look like they're backing down. It doesn't look like they're having second thoughts about it. I got to go, Senator.
That doesn't make them right. And I'll tell you this, Gibbs is not only wrong, but the president was wrong, and he was wrong on the law, he was wrong on the facts, and Chief Justice Roberts is right.
It's interesting to hear him speak out. You don't often have that. It made news and headlines,
right.
Not just here. Senator Hatch, thank you so much.
It's got to really be irritating to him for him to speak out like that, and I think he was appropriate in speaking out under these circumstances.
Thank you so much for being here, sir. All the best to you.
You bet.